Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs. Hello, damn fam, and welcome to season 5 and episode 700. And oh my god, I forgot my place. 797. There we go. Of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Oh, Canada. Always 100% Canadian. That one was for you, Kit PNC Bio. You don't have to bring a tasteful gift today. Oh, I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A, and not with me as usual is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. Big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. How is your mental health today, kids and cubs? I have to admit, it's split. Overall, I'm good. Overall, I'm good. Nothing wrong going on at all. Had a lovely evening last night. Was date night with my beaver sweetie, and I happened to have the night off from curling because we had a bye, and so we got ourselves tickets to go see the Soweto Gospel Choir at the local theater here, and it was an absolutely fantastic night. If ever they're in your neck of the woods and you have an opportunity to go see them, it's really worth your time and money. So we had a beautiful time, but and I'm happy with that and got a good night's sleep and all that. But as you know, kids and cubs, I am a curler. And right now, what I consider to be the best curling tournament on the face of the planet is happening, which is the Canadian Olympic Curling Trials. And while the curling is absolutely fantastic, there was even an upset the other day. Team Homan delivered only, I think, their 15th loss in the last 2 years by Team Skurlik in an extra end. That got a lot of tongues wagging. But yeah, that which has everybody's attention at the moment is unfortunately some very sad news. The world, the curling world, and Canada particularly, but the curling world lost what is arguably its first superstar. And with the passing of a legendary curler and legendary broadcaster, Colleen Jones, at the age of 65. Heard about it yesterday, a few hours after it happened, and the first reaction was like, "No!" Then some sadness, of course, because I mean, anybody who's familiar with Colleen Jones in the least, even if you don't know her from her curling career and you only know her from her broadcast career, I mean, she is sunshine on two legs, right? She's love on two legs. She's just a light. She's a light. Um, I don't think I've ever heard anybody say a cross word or a bad word about her. And when you have a career as long as she has had, both in curling and in broadcasting and in the public eye that way, you know, something's bound to come up at some point. But you never heard anything about Colleen at all. Um, my first thought was for Devin, our friend Devin Haru, who comes on the show regularly enough because I mean they were like two peas in a pod, right? Absolutely great friends, especially with that curling show, and um, so he must be just devastated, I would imagine. Um, but yeah, it's I actually didn't even know she was sick. There you go. She does tend to be private about certain things, but I'm guessing it might have been known. But I wasn't aware. Um, According to Curling Canada, because I figured I'd go to the source. Sports fans love their stars. Perhaps that is why, when a nation loses one of them through death, the impact is felt so deeply. So it has been with news that Colleen Jones, a two-time world and six-time Canadian women's curling championship skip, passed away at age 65 in Matters Cove, Nova Scotia, after a lengthy fight with cancer. Damn you, cancer. The news of her death sent shockwaves through the Canadian curling community and, in particular, the people of Nova Scotia. There's an undeniable sense of pride that comes with cheering on the provincial hero. To blue nosers everywhere, Jones was, quote, their girl who raised the profile of sports in the province to the highest level with her national and international achievements. To underline the impact of her death on the people of Nova Scotia, it's worth noting that in 2018, Jones finished second to NHL star Sidney Crosby in the listing of the greatest 15 athletes in Nova Scotia's history. Her death was on the grieving level of another great Canadian female curler, Regina Sanders Schmerler, who passed away in 2000 at the age of 36 of cancer. Kim Kelly, her longtime teammate and friend, said Jones' on-ice resume speaks for itself, and the results were a product of her absolute devotion to the sport. It was in her DNA, it was all-consuming, said Kelly, who was attending the afternoon draw at Tuesday at the Montana's Canadian Curling Trials because she knew that Jones would say, quote, what the hell, you should be at the game. Quote, her whole life was built around curling. She said she met her husband, had her kids around curling. Her friends were the curling world. She wouldn't have the job she had if it wasn't for curling. It was all she was about. I don't know if there's another curler who can say that. Kim said Jones expected a lot from herself and teammates. Quote, there was a fierceness and rigidity there. Off the ice, she was the exact opposite. She had so much compassion that wasn't allowed to come out in her competitive self. Jones and Nova Scotia curling might as well be synonymous. A member of a large curling family, she found competitive success early after joining the Mayflower Curling Club at age 14. She burst big time on the curling scene in 1979 at the tender age of 19 when she won her first of 16 provincial women's titles, plus a silver medal at that year's Canada Games. At 22, Jones became the youngest skip to win a Scotties Tournament of Hearts title when her team emerged as champions at the 1982 event in Regina, with the support cast of third Kay Smith, second Monica Jones, and lead Barb Jones-Gordon. That was the start of her amazing run, where Jones chewed up the opposition as vigorously as she did her favorite stick of gum. She didn't do it alone, of course, and the contributions of her new teammates, third Kim Kelly, second Marianne Arsenault, and lead Nancy Delahunt, helped set a standard for excellence in women's curling, winning 5 Canadian women's championships in 6 years and 4 in a row. The national titles were won in 1999, 2001, 2002, 2003, and 2004. The team also went on to win 2 world titles in 2001 and 2004. Gary Peckham, who served as Director of High Performance for Curling Canada for many years, was a big Team Jones cheerleader. Quote, I was always a real fan of the Colleen Jones team, he said. They didn't travel as much and play as much as some other teams, but their approach to training and willingness to be students of the game was cutting edge as far as an approach to elite play. At one point, Jones held the record for most Scotties Tournament of Hearts wins by a skip at 152 before it was eclipsed by Winnipeg's Jennifer Jones in 2021. Much later, Jones showed she hadn't lost her competitive thirst and appeared in 4 Canadian Women's Senior Curling Championships, winning it in 2016 and the world title the following year. Jones also won a couple of Canadian mixed titles in 1993 and 1999 and last appeared nationally, playing lead for Nova Scotia's Paul Fleming at the 2023 Canadian Mixed in Swift Current, Saskatchewan at the age of 63. The people of Nova Scotia got to know Jones on a deeper level through their TV screens. She had worked as a reporter and weather presenter with the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation in Halifax. There's only been three things in my life, and that's my family and curling and CBC. Those have been the priorities, and that's why I've always done. That's what I've always done, Jones said in the months ahead of her retirement in 2023. Jones also worked as a television sideline reporter for curling events at the 2014, 2018, and 2022 Winter Olympic Games. Jones had health problems before. In 2010, what she thought was a cold or flu turned out to be bacterial meningitis, a life-threatening condition. The health scare prompted Jones to collaborate with Toronto writer Penny Lefko to produce, quote, Throwing Rocks at Houses, where she opened up about her journey as a curling superstar, CBC broadcaster, and mother of two sons. It was her second book. She was also behind Curling Secrets, an instructional guide to curling for novices and experts. Jones went on to garner numerous accolades during her career, including being appointed to the Order of Canada in 2022, named to Canada's Sports Hall of Fame in 2016, and inducted into the Canadian Curling Hall of Fame in 1989. Uh, yeah. I mean, I remember growing up watching Colleen Jones play curling, right? I started playing curling when I was in high school, probably back around 1988 or something like that. Yeah, probably September or October 1988. I picked up a curling stone for the first time, and I've been hooked ever since. And yeah, I saw her win those Canadian championships. So, I'd watch it on TV. There are two athletes, in my mind in Canada that's like represent Canada specifically, everything that I believe to be Canadian. Well, three really, actually, when I think about it. Colleen Jones is one. The other two are Clara Hughes and Becky Scott. Clara Hughes, the cyclist and speed skater who won medals in Winter and Summer Olympics, and was one of the initial faces of Bell Let's Talk when it back in the early days when it was uh, a more credible initiative. Let's put it that way. Um, she's someone I always thought, like, just if she wants to be Governor General one day, just hand it to her, right? She's been the perfect ambassador for Canada. Becky Scott, same thing with cross country skiing and winning medals and being a fierce advocate for a clean sport. But the other one is the original is Colleen Jones. I mean, it's just, curling that long, right? Junior, open and then senior levels and, going to the worlds again and again and again and picking up titles, national ones and world ones, and then working for the CBC as broadcaster for, I mean, how do you get more Canadian than that, right? You could basically, she was an ice cream cone, you could dip her in Canadian sauce, right? So, it's a big loss. It's just a massive loss, and when you just consider, as the article said, just how kind she was and what a passion she had for the sport and how infectious her passion was, and her smile and her energy and her good naturedness, and just like I said, everybody loved her. So, Sportsnet has someone quoting her as being a real treasure. I mean, uh, better words you could not pick. According to Sportsnet, Kim Kelly had already pointed out that her longtime teammate Colin Jones wouldn't have advised crying during an interview when Kelly's eyes started to well up again as she tried to capture her friend's incomparable life in words. Quote, I think that's what she would want people to remember her as warm, compassionate, caring human, Kelly said of Jones, her voice shaking as tears fell just before Canada's 8 best women curling teams began play at Scotiabank Centre for a chance to represent the country at the 2026 Olympics. And I think what I would miss most is all of her, Kelly added. Just her. On Tuesday, the curling world mourned the loss of an icon as news emerged that earlier in the day, Jones had lost a nearly 3-year-long battle to cancer at the age of 65, with her husband Scott Saunders and sons Luke and Zach by her side in her hometown of Halifax. And her son Luke, who's also a curler, a very good one, Um, wrote, "Hi friends, it's Colleen's son Luke. Mom had been fighting and trying to beat back cancer over the last 3 years or so. Late this morning, while looking out on the ocean from her favorite spot in Matters Cove with my dad, brother, and myself by her side, beside her, sorry, Mom passed away. Please think of your favorite Colleen Jones moment, cherish it. Hurry and love hard." All the while, Canada's Olympic curling trials are ongoing in Jones's hometown, where Canada's top men and women's team are competing for birth to Milano Cortina. And as Kelly put it, she would have loved to be here right now. Jones's presence was certainly felt. The first words over the arena speaker Tuesday evening ahead of the women's draw were, quote, "The curling world has lost a legend," followed by clips of Jones celebrating some of her incredible six Scotties Tournament of Hearts Championships wins on the big screen, always sporting that giant smile she so often wore. Fans in the building rose to their feet and clapped in her memory, and there was a moment of silence before play began. Out on the ice for their pregame memorial ceremony were Jones's three former teammates in Kelly, Marianne Arsenault, and Nancy Delahunt, along with Jones's son Luke, who earlier Tuesday released a statement from her social media accounts announcing she had passed while surrounded by her family and looking at the ocean from Matters Cove, her favorite spot in Nova Scotia. Jones coached Luke and Team Nova Scotia to a playoff appearance at the Brier earlier this year. She cried tears of joy when he made his debut on that stage back in 2023. Jones, a two-time world champion, played in more Scotties games than anybody ever and 21 national championships in all. She was the youngest skip to win the title. She was the first skip to win 4 straight national championships. Jones blazed trails not only on the ice in growing the profile of the women's game, but also as the first female sports anchor in Halifax in 1986, the start of a nearly 3-decade-long career as a reporter. She was appointed to the Order of Canada in 2022 for her work in paving the way for women in both sport and broadcasting. Quote, "I think she was a person in the world that left a big footprint, but in curling, I don't know if anyone will leave a bigger one," Kelly said, since her friend's impact was felt as a person, curler, and media personality. Jones was so energetic with infectious enthusiasm and a love for life, and Kelly said one of Jones' sisters, Monica, told her that Jones, quote, "fought tooth and nail to stay in this world." The statement issued by Curling Canada CEO Nolan Thiessen, who also is a curler, included, quote, "She is the best of what our sport is and can be." And a statement from Curling Canada here states, "Curling has lost a legend. It is with profound sadness that we share the passing of one of the most exceptional figures in Canadian curling, Colleen Jones. During her curling career, Colleen captured 6 national women's championships and 2 world championships. She also served as a curling coach, broadcaster, and ambassador, helping grow the sport across the country and the world. Thank you, Colleen, for your enduring contribution to our sport. Every shot played, every rink inspired, every life you touched. You will be deeply missed, and your legacy will forever endure on the ice and in our hearts. Our thoughts are with Colleen's family, friends, and the whole curling community." And since we're here, um, let's take time to show you a few pictures. Go here with her famous blue and white jacket from Nova Scotia with the heart from the tournaments of hearts there. And then with her team, Kelly, Arsenault, and Delahunt, kissing the trophy after having won one. Then some more here. And then with her son Luke. Um, again, just that big, lovely smile. Like I said, it was impossible not to love Colleen Jones. I'm a little, I'm a little verklempt. um, uh, let's see. There are so many tributes going on here. Um, yeah, I just do not know what to pick. I think I'm going to go. There's one here that says, how Colleen Jones would want you to remember her from the National. And another one from Ian Hannamansing tonight that says, former curling mates of Colleen Jones reflect on her legacy. So I think I will go to that one because you want to hear from the people that knew her, a lot of time with her. Um, so I normally wouldn't do this play an entire segment like this for an occasion like this, but if there's anybody that does deserve it, it's Colleen Jones. So please, if you haven't seen this, sit back and relax while we honor uh, one of uh, the better people that I know of. I've never had the opportunity to meet her, unfortunately. And curling is one of those great sports where you often get to meet your favorite players and the people you play on TV. Sometimes, even at bonspiels, especially near the end of the season, a lot of them show up. I've been on the same ice as some legendary curlers along the way. I've even played against a few. I've had the chance at some local tournaments now and then. Um, so yeah, it's one of those sports where even if you haven't met anyone, you haven't had a chance to meet someone, you feel particularly close to the stars because it's one of those sports that's not big enough yet, and especially earlier wasn't so big that you couldn't be at a curling tournament and then just wind up face to face with one of them. It's like, oh hi, so nice to meet you. Or upstairs and going to get a beer or going to get a drink, and you bump into one of their parents, and end up having a conversation or something with their spouse. The people are extremely, extremely approachable. So you really do feel like you know them. Yeah, I mean, I was once at a curling event, and I was sitting at the same table having dinner with Craig Saville, right? Another legend in the sport. Y- you know, sometimes the world loses an athlete, and they're big and they're important, and but odds are you may have never even seen them live, just on TV, right? Um, but there's something about the curling community, how it supports each other, big and small, and how the big stars just give back and give back and give back. That makes the community feel a lot smaller and more tight knit than it does with other sports. So, like I said, you just you have a feeling that you really know that these people, that they're you know especially if you watch a lot of it on TV or go to watch a lot of it live and that kind of stuff, right? There are so many tournaments in a year, and there's so much curling, and and people generally have long careers in the sport that you get to know them. I mean, Colleen Jones, we got to know her over 3 decades, right? And then some. So you grow up with them. They're part of your lives for a long time. So uh, yeah, I guess that's might be one of the reasons why people are particularly feeling this one. But yeah, let's go see the what how it was covered by Ian. See what some of her teammates had to say about her.
Colleen Jones was an icon in the world of curling. She was the skip on 2 women's world championship teams and 6 Tournament of Hearts championships. And she was also a shining light off the ice.
I have a mic. I'm on a bike. Let's go find stories.
Jones was a fixture in our homes. She joined the CBC in 1986, serving as a reporter and TV host for nearly 40 years, based in Nova Scotia. She was named to the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame in 2016 and appointed to the Order of Canada in 2022 for paving the way for women in both sport and broadcasting. She retired from CBC 2 years ago. I want to play a small sample of Colleen's work.
I love my job. I mean, I get to get out and meet other Canadians. It's great fun going into the communities and showcasing their communities. Actually, I thought I would die on my adventures after after bungee jumping, I mean, what else? Oh, yum. Fellow Canadians, can I share? Can you believe he's letting me try? Woo!
It's on, and it's over. Colleen Jones is on top of the world again.
Boy, that video sure captures her spirit. Devin Haru from CBC Sports joins us from the Olympic curling trials that are underway right now in Halifax. And Devin, the most important event in curling at the moment is taking place in Colleen Jones' hometown. What's it like there tonight?
Good evening, Ian. There is immense emotion in this building here tonight, downtown Halifax. If you can believe it, Colleen's soon-to-be daughter-in-law, Marley Powers, on the ice here behind me. Her son, Luke Saunders, is here. There was an emotional tribute before the game honoring Colleen, and everybody was standing and applauding. Her former teammates are here, Ian. They won all of those Scotties together in the early 2000s. This is an immense loss. So many people coming forward as I walk around the concourse talking about Colleen's legacy, sharing a story about Colleen. So, you know, it's quite something that her death happens in the heart of the Canadian Olympic curling trials in her hometown where her curling journey started, Ian.
Yeah, you were a close friend of Colleen's. You were with her during her last chemotherapy appointment. What message would she have for our viewers?
It was quite something, Ian. Nothing like having Colleen say, interview me right now, and having to flip the script and ask good questions of the skipper. Listen, Colleen was larger than life. She had such a zest for life. She wanted us all to know that we should firstly keep on living, keep on rocking, keep on moving, get on a bike, go for a walk, get on the ice. You know, I think Colleen is probably the way she lived best summed up by a quote she had framed in her living room at her house in Halifax. That quote, Ian, said, always believe that something wonderful is about to happen. Right until her last breath, she continued to believe in the power of positivity. So the message to Canadians who are mourning tonight is that Colleen would not want us to be sad. She would want us to look at our loved ones, give them a hug, and then keep on living, keep on moving forward, Ian.
Yeah, I love that message. And you have some of her former teammates with you?
What a night. The band is back together. I mentioned it a second ago that they're all here, the fearsome foursome that won 4 consecutive Scotties Tournament of Hearts together. So why don't we get into it, Ian, right now, joined by third on the team, Kim Kelly. Kim, firstly, I'm sorry for your loss. And I just wonder what you're thinking about tonight.
Devin, I think your opening remarks really do say it all. What I'm thinking about is there's a little bit of relief because I know there was, you know, it's never easy to go through what Colleen did. And I think she's the one that was the brave champion of it all. So I'm relieved for her to, you know, be in a better place, as they say. But man, she's such a big part of my life, my teammates' life, that, like you said, the lives of everybody that that are coming out of the woodwork. Who has personal stories from thousands of people? She's, you know, we are so lucky to have been super close to her. So what am I feeling? The sadness of not having her to talk to, but I still hear her. I do. She'd be going, okay, just, you know, stop talking now, Kim, that's enough.
She would love this. She would be right here soaking this up. You had the unique position of being her roommate through all of those Scotties. Tell us some stories. Let's celebrate Colleen right now because she was wacky, quirky, and loved to have fun.
Yes, and she was all of those things and funny and full of life and taught me so much, but she also kept me strictly in line. There were rules. Like, for example, in our hotel room, there wasn't allowed to be any light, any noise, any little green flickering things. She'd put towels under the door. There were certain routines. We went to bed at a certain time. So she was quirky. She was quirky, but yeah. Just like we grew together to be sisters. I used to joke that, you know, every now and then I thought about smothering her in her sleep, and her, me too. But no, we loved each other.
Last word to you. What are you going to miss most about Col?
Well, I've been asked this question 3 times. I've cried the other 2, but hopefully I can say it very eloquently. Simply her. It's, you know, no more her talking back to me. Oh no, there I go. But just her love and zest and but she'll always be with me.
Larger than life, Kimmy. Thanks for doing this.
No problem. My pleasure.
All right, we're bringing Ian. We're going to continue this trip down memory lane here with her teammates in Halifax as we all sort of absorb the larger-than-life character that was Colleen Jones, and now joined by the team second, Marianne Arsenault. Marianne, so much emotion today. How are you? And what has today been like as we all sort of try and process a loss of somebody of Colleen's stature?
I'm well. We did have plenty of warning, but it doesn't make it any easier for sure. Today has been a bit of a blur, actually, from finding out this morning. And then, when it went public, then I got out of the arena this afternoon and had 126 messages to return, which is wonderful.
She was a champion on the ice. She was a champion broadcaster, and she loved her kids. She loved being a mom. From your perspective, how did she manage all of this, Marianne?
I have no idea. Just energy. She had so much energy. I don't think she slept much. But she just always kept all the balls in the air. Yeah.
So many people have talked about her being a trailblazer in curling. You had a front row seat. You were a part of all those dramatic wins at times, but just the force she was, what did make her the champion she was?
I think always thinking that she wasn't good enough or that we weren't good enough. She would always make us do more, practice more, bring in more advice, coaches, any kind of resource that she could think of. So she never rested on any laurels.
Last one for you, Marianne. How would Colleen want us to remember her?
I think she would want us to remember her as a dedicated mother and wife. I think that's her proudest achievement is her sons. That she always gave 100% to everything.
I mean, even in her fight with cancer, she overperformed, which seems so like Colleen Jones. Marianne, thank you for this.
Thanks, Devin.
Marianne Arsenault here, of course, Ian, part of this fearsome foursome, like I said, that won 4 consecutive Scotties at the beginning of the 2000s, and the final member of that team stepping into the fray now here at Scotiabank Arena, Nancy Delahunt. And Nance, we're all taking this in, and how are you remembering your friend tonight?
Boy, I mean, we've had a chance to get used to Colleen struggling with this disease, and I thought I would be somewhat ready for it, It seemed that it was devastating when we got the news, but just feeling pretty sad. And Loopy today, it's a sad day.
You were here with this tribute, a beautiful tribute. You were here with the family, with Luke. Maybe some thoughts on how everybody is processing this tonight.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, this is new news. Although some of us have known for a while, and her battle has she's been exquisite, like with the battle. I think she's outperformed what she should have done. She's done more, had more months, had more time. And how's everyone doing? I think that we are doing it the way that Colleen would want us to do it. We're doing it the way that Colleen would do it. We've often said the best person at doing this kind of thing would be Colleen. She would give the best tribute. She would give the best answers. She would give the best. And I think Luke, I must say, Luke is kind of my leader here right now, because if Luke can do it, I can do it. And Luke's got a lot of balance in his life. He's got a lot of, I've got his back, and there's a lot of people that have his back. So we will be fine. Yeah.
Out of all the things she was, and all the admirable things, she was resilient. She was a fighter. What was it like to be in the orbit of Colleen Jones? Because as a friend of hers, I felt anything was possible, and I was invincible in her orbit.
It's true. She seemed invincible. I must say there were a couple times when you just have a heavy sigh, sort of saying, more, like we've got to be better. We've got to, because honestly, Kim has said it before where she would celebrate for maybe a couple of hours, but then it would be looking around the corner to say, how can we get better? Because we need to be better next year, next game, next tournament or whatever. So, I'm going to miss her example of resilience for sure, but I will insist to myself that I will still follow her example because, that's a way to honor her.
Last one, Nance. Canadians coast to coast to coast are mourning the loss of Colleen. What do you say to all of them, and what do you think Colleen would want us to take away in this moment of sadness?
Yeah, I got soaked up in watching a lot of the tributes on CBC this afternoon, which was a bit of a mistake because I couldn't take my eyes off it. It was very well done, but I've always said that this is weighing on us hardest because we were some of the lucky ones on her inner circle. And therefore, it matters so much to us because she mattered so much to us. But in watching some of those tributes and people's stories this afternoon, I realized that she was important to so many people. Maybe not as much and as much time as us, but she made such an impression with just the quick amount of time that she had ever had with everyone across Canada. And I think what you saw was what you get too. Like what you saw was what you get with Colleen. So she, I just would say she would want everybody to continue with a hop and a skip and look towards tomorrow. Yeah.
Beautifully said, Nance. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
Beautiful tributes, Ian. That's just a slice from some of the people, her teammates, who of course, had a front row seat to all of this. One last note. Ian, she won her first Scotties in 1982 at the age of 22 years old, the youngest ever to win a Scotties. And then she won another one 17 years later. She never stopped believing throughout all those years she could be on top of the world. I think that best sums up the fighting spirit of Colleen Jones, and we are going to celebrate her and honor her here in a place she would love most, at a curling rink, Ian.
That you, as a friend, are delivering this tribute tonight, that we got to hear from her teammates in those really nice interviews, and that, as you point out, this is happening at not just a curling event, but a really important curling event. It's all a perfect tribute to a fantastic person. Devin Haru in Halifax, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ian.
Oh my God, I just want to reach out and give Devin the biggest hug. Oh my God, poor guy. Oh, gee. I mean, clearly you saw him shake and heard his voice shake, and he's overcome with emotion. He was able to keep it together to do that. I don't know how he did that. I don't know how he kept it together. I would have been a mess. I would have been a mess doing that, especially interviewing 3 teammates. And, again, considering the extremely close connection he has with her. They couldn't have picked a better person. I just don't know how he's able to hold it together. But, that's Devin Haru for you, right? Just the consummate professional. One of the reasons why we love having him on the show. Not only his infectious enthusiasm, something, for the sport and for sport in general and all things Canada, something he definitely shares with Colleen Jones. Is it any wonder these two became friends? Seriously. I don't know if I would be able to do that. I would want to be able to do that. If I had somebody, if I was in that field and had a friend close to me that is loved, who passed away, I would love to be able to be the one. No, put me in. It's like nobody else should be doing this but me. And I would really want to do a good job and to keep it together, to be able to, honor my friend in the best way possible. But I don't know if I would have the capacity to do that. But then again, as well, once those situations come up, you sometimes surprise yourself by how much capacity you have, at least in the moment, to be able to be there for everyone else without falling apart. And then once that happens, then you fall apart. You fall apart hard. But I remember that when my mom passed, there was some talk here in the chat about people passing in grief, and it's I think it might have been Andrew Garfield who said that on Stephen Colbert or something like that, but uh, somebody said that grief is the price you pay for having loved. Eventually the bill comes due, right? Because nobody can stay forever, right? Uh kind of makes grief appear to be a more beautiful thing than a painful thing when you view it from that perspective. But grief sucks. It's hard. I remember when my mom passed. I heard a comment from I think the first teammate saying that there was some relief because she had been fighting it well for 3 years, right? And it's not easy. Um, and that's how I felt with when my mom passed as well, right? She had been battling an illness all my life that I know of. And yeah, there was part of me that was like, just, oh my God, she's just not suffering anymore, right? And there was a relief with that. Um, but there was a pervasive, pervasive or underlying or just overall melancholy is the word I would use. It's, you know, commercials make me cry. I'd hear a song that reminded me of her. I'd end up crying. Um, just prefer to cocoon at home rather than spend time with friends, stuff like that. And that lasted a solid 5 years or so uh, before I decided, you know, maybe this is a little too much, and went to go get some help and some counseling and some therapy, um, and then just tried to rejoin the world by, but I was just thinking, when's the last time I was very really happy? And I was thinking, well, that was in high school. And what was I doing in high school? Well, I was doing theater and I was doing curling. So I went back to doing theater and doing curling, a few years after my mom died. And several years after my mom died. And that did set me back. Well, that did set me back to a good spot. And then, I was able to build up again from that point and sort of rejoin life and find my love and my zest for it, my zeal for it, and my usual uh, happy and optimistic countenance. But it hit hard for a long time, for a very long time. So yeah, it's yeah, Carol, grief comes in waves. It really does. I'd ugly cry the whole time. Yeah, I had one or two ugly cries, but the rest of it was just sort of like I just like kept springing leaks all the time. It's like, just stop. Yeah, Kid Carol. Wow, lots of wisdom. You get stuck in grief like mud. Yeah, you do. You really do. You can get mired, and that's why I went to go get some help. I felt like I was just like stuck in a rut after a few years. It was just like, come on, you can't, like, this cannot be the rest of your life. You got to move on. And I knew that my mom certainly wouldn't want that to be the rest of my life. So yeah, I gave myself a kick in the back, kick in the pants. Got myself out there, and try to get some help pulling myself up. Um, we talk about mental health a lot on the show, and Mr. Grizzly talks a lot about depression, and talks about how he um, found the right medication that allows him to manage it, because it's not cure. It's not a cure. It just allows you to manage, and you have better days and worse days. But there's also situational depression, right? It doesn't have to be biochemical. It's just, there's a lot of things that happen, and they either hit you hard, or a lot of things happen all at once. Sometimes it could be just one thing that hits you hard and knocks you for a loop. It could be a lot of things happening all at once. Or something hits you and sends you for a loop, and while you're in that state, other things happen, and you're just not equipped to handle them as well, and either make poor decisions, or things pile up because you avoid, right? But it's all there waiting for you. And medication won't help with that. But it's just as real. it's just as real as situational depression. Um, and when I went to see the therapist and he said, I was situationally depressed, a lot of people might be shocked or sad about that or angry about that. And for me, it was a bit of a relief because, so basically, you're saying that um, I'm not going through something that any normal person wouldn't be going through in the exact same circumstances, and that there's nothing wrong with me. I'm perfectly normal. I mean, there's something wrong with me in the sense that I'm not my usual self, like this, but that this is an entirely appropriate way to feel considering the situation, which uh, ironically did help. It helped a lot to put things in a proper box, if one would say, um, and just give me that sense. Okay, well, if it's situation, then at some point, um, when I have a problem, that's emotional. My defense mechanism or my coping mechanism is to delve into my rational mind and try to see, it's like, uh, I can't avoid feeling what I'm feeling. The feelings happen; they just come up. Those you can't control, but you can control how you interpret them, how you, how you take them and go forward with them. And getting that piece of information when I slotted it into my usual way that I cope was sort of like, well, if it's situational, then change your situation. Then you might change how you feel about it. So, and that's what gave me the kick in the pants to go and sort of like rejoin life, even though it was going to be hard to not just you know come home from work and you know be comfy and cozy in my little uh, you know my little space that I had made for myself, where nothing can get in and can hurt me. Right. Um, the walls of my condo weren't a prison that I had made for myself, because the mind is the greatest prison, but more like um, a really soft, warm, cozy blanket that you can just run to and hide and feel safe, and nothing will hurt you. And like I said, that works for a while, and you need that. But then, you know, again, I keep on quoting a Reba McEntire song, but the world doesn't stop for your broken heart, right? Um, so yeah, uh, at some point, constant melancholy is not sustainable as a life choice. So you have to do something. But it's amazing how long, how long one can be comfortably or uncomfortably comfortable in that sort of self-imposed cocoon. And the longer you stay in it, the harder it is to get out. And personally, uh, I was a painfully shy kid, and young adult and teenager, and um, and I had worked very hard to overcome that and to become more proactive. And in those 5 years that I stayed at home, I lost all of that because it's a muscle, right? You practice it. When I went back into the world after that, I was again that really, really painfully shy 15-year-old who wore beige if the walls were beige and didn't want to be noticed and didn't want to make any scenes and all that kind of stuff, and spoke even more softly than I am now, and was hard to hear. And I always had to repeat everything 3 or 4 times because people would say, what? And, so didn't want to make noise, didn't want to make waves, didn't want to draw attention. And, yeah, I had to reacquire all of those skills, which was not easy. Not easy, I have to say. But um, yeah, it's easy to fall back in comfortable patterns that serve you well until they don't. Right. So yeah, Grief is very hard, and there's a lot of people experiencing uh, lots of grief as the result of the passing of Colleen Jones. Just an absolutely fantastic person. All right, kids and cubs. Let's move on. It's not not a topic that's easy to segue away from elegantly, particularly to some of the stuff that we're going to be talking more political. But given that there's no elegant way to do it, let's just do it. The Prime Minister has returned from his trip to South Africa for the G20. And of course, there's been a lot of fallout, of course, because of one uh, little quip that he made during the press conference. But the Prime Minister had a very successful trip. I mean, the meeting with the folks from the UAE. Yes, there's the whole Sudan issue that's there. I find it really interesting talking about the Sudan issue as it applies to the UAE, given that the other 364 days of the year, almost nobody mentions Sudan ever. But now we're about to sign a trade deal, and now people are concerned. Oh, what about the human rights? Well, maybe, you know, and what's going on in Sudan is absolutely terrible. But it was something I criticized other people for. Tasha Keridan, the columnist, at one point was talking about something, and about people caring and not caring, and then all of a sudden she's talking about the Sudan, and we don't care about this, and why do we care about the other thing, and all that type of stuff, and maybe we should start caring about this, and it's like, and then I'm looking back, and it was the first time she had ever written about Sudan in the last like 10 years or something, right? So it was just some convenient ploy to create some type of rhetorical trap to make an anti-liberal point. So you didn't really care about Sudan. You only exploited the situation in Sudan in order to be able to make a point. And she never, don't know how much she's advocated for Sudan since writing that hit piece, but I'm gonna guess probably about as often as she advocated for Sudan before she wrote it. So yeah, I mean, we are doing some things for Sudan. We have like an envelope of money that's going there and all that kind of stuff. But how much are we really doing? I mean, especially if we look at what's going on in Sudan, we look at what's going on in Israel and Palestine, and look at the difference in the treatment in media coverage and whatnot. So I always find it, oh, we're about to sign a deal with UAE. Oh, what about Sudan? Oh, now you care about Sudan. Other, I would have a little more I would have more ease believing that we actually cared about what was going on down there, if we would talk about it more than just before we're about to sign a trade deal. But if we're talking about the sheer just practicality and bringing money into the country, regardless of human rights records, I mean, Prime Minister is going to where the money is. UAE has a big sovereign wealth fund. There was talk about some talks with the Qataris coming up relatively soon. They've got a huge sovereign wealth fund. He's going where the money is. Um, and yeah, more trade with China, more trade with India coming up on that. That's coming up too, and then, the federal government making statements that, yes, we have to be practical. So, we're going to have trade with China and India, just like we still have trade with Russia, despite the fact that Russia is doing certain things. There's certain things that we are still trading with Russia on. And just like we will have trade with the United States, a lot of people go, oh, elbows up. Oh, you made a deal that has the United States involved. Yes, we're going to make some deals that have with the United States involved somewhere along the way. But we are hoping to have more deals that have more value with other people over time in more states and more nations than with the United States, right? We're looking to diversify. We're not looking to sever ties with the United States and go it alone without them. We are looking to diversify, have an increasing share of trade with other nations, so that if the United States decides that it's going to go all its own way and do something crazy, that it won't have as big an impact as on our economy in the future as it can now, right? But that doesn't mean that we're walking away completely from the United States. So the levels of integration that we are going to have with China are probably going to be lesser. We're probably not going to have, some type of deal where we're considering buying fighter jets from China as we are from Sweden, for example. But China is a global leader when it comes to going green and green technologies and that type of stuff. And, maybe there could be lots of opportunity for collaboration on wind and solar, for example. But on the other side of the ledger, China is, got, I think, probably about over 90% of the world's, critical minerals and rare earths refining capacity. Um, uh, there needs to be another hub for that somewhere, a competing hub somewhere around the world for that, in case China decides to go the route of the United States at one point and, cuts off people's supplies. And that's where Canada is, looking to step up and become that alternative hub, and has been leading a charge with other nations on critical minerals to trying to create a block of nations that would have, again, a reasonable, reliable supplier that believes in a rule-based order in order to do trade, because critical minerals are essential for communications and particularly military nowadays. And Canada is trying to position itself as being that alternative hub in the future. So we're, announcing all these critical minerals projects, and we're trying to do things like expand our ports and build better rail and all that type of stuff, so that we can ship that out. And we're out there trying to sign these deals with other countries, so that when we are able to get them out of the ground, we have someplace to ship them to. Um, so all that stuff is going on, and he came back with some sizable deals, about $70 billion of commitments coming in from the UAE, and then he was going off to South Africa, which was for the G20, and this was the first G20 ever hosted by South Africa. And we also have to remember that the G20 is a bit of a Canadian concept, right? It was Prime Minister Paul Martin that had the overall idea and created the concept of a something bigger than the G7 that would have large but also emerging economies that would have more representation from the global south. And we now have this vehicle called the G20, which has endured. And since there wasn't much presence from the Americans at this one, there was an opportunity for other nations to really get some business done with given that the toddler who was seeking everybody's attention, or commands everyone's attention, or decides to just remove his diaper and poop on the table, so that everybody has to stop what they're doing and deal with cleaning up the poop. Um, that wasn't there this time around, and they were actually be able to get some real stuff done. The prime minister had a press conference while he was in South Africa, where he talked about many things that he had particularly achieved with regard to the negotiations that took place at the G20. And then, of course, there was a question and answer period, during which the now infamous "Who cares" quip that Polyev and the Conservatives have been running with, and, well, basically um, spinning in very interesting and convenient ways. Let's put it that way. Happened. So hopefully we'll have a moment to take a look at that quip, so you see how it actually happened, and to what specifically he was saying. Who cares? And then compare and contrast with what how the Conservatives are applying it. So here we have some opening remarks from the Prime Minister. He's definitely has a lot to say here. So we'll go through it, because there have been a certain series of accomplishments, and they maybe not did not get all the press that they deserved, just considering the size of the event and how much there's talk about Trump and all the other stuff going on the political scene at the moment. With turmoil in many provinces and Danielle pushing for an MOU on the pipeline. So some of the G20 stuff kind of got bumped lower down the news scale. But there were some interesting announceables, and the Prime Minister, as was the case at the UN meeting recently, had lots of requests for his time, and a lot of people paying attention to what it was that he was saying. Canada on the world stage, and the Conservatives would not want you to know this, but is taking more of a leadership role to fill in some parts of the vacuum that the United States has created. And it's very obvious. It was very obvious at the G20, not only by what the Prime Minister was saying, but what people were saying about him, and the number of people that were trying to get his attention, and how people were wrapped with attention when it is that he was speaking. So let's take a look at his opening remarks here from what's going on. If there's anything critical here, we will make some note of it and bring attention to it when we come back.
Merci d'être venu, and I'll just say thank you to all of colleagues from Canada who have come to South Africa for the G20. I also want to begin by thanking President Ramaphosa for his leadership in hosting the first G20's Leaders Summit in Africa, as well as his generous hospitality and that of his team. Now, when President Ramaphosa attended the G7 in Kananaskis back in June, we discussed our shared priorities for Canada's G7 presidency and South Africa's G20. And even though Canada and South Africa are separated by long physical distances, we're bound by deep historical ties, by enduring friendship, and a promising future together. I just want to recall our Prime Minister Brian Mulroney standing in solidarity with South Africans in their struggle for freedom, leading by imposing sanctions and advocating for an end to apartheid. When South Africa emerged as a democracy, Canada was amongst the first nations to engage as their partner. Canadian judges and lawyers shared lessons from our own experience with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms as South Africans wrote theirs. And that legacy of cooperation continues today. Our firefighters, on both sides, are deployed across oceans when wildfires rage, as they do all too frequently. Our scientists collaborate in agriculture, artificial intelligence, and clean technology. Our entrepreneurs are building partnerships that stretch from Cape Town to Calgary. And it's that spirit of cooperation that has underpinned our work at this summit. 2 decades ago, in the aftermath of the Asian financial crisis, Canada's then Finance Minister, Paul Martin, helped to design the G20. His argument at the time was that the world's most significant economies, both advanced and emerging, should meet regularly to strengthen financial stability and global governance. The G20's mission was to bring together the global North and South, to ensure that fast-growing economies such as China, India, Brazil, and South Africa had their seat at the table, and to make an increasingly interconnected global economy work for everyone. Well, that mission endures. The assumptions beneath it have been transformed. This G20 meeting takes place in a very different world. For generations, middle powers like Canada have benefited from a rules-based multilateral trading system and an open global financial order. Our geography gave us privileged access to the world's largest economy and distanced us from many of the world's threats. Et maintenant, la stratégie économique des États-Unis est passée de multilatéralisme à une approche bilatérale et plus dirigée.
So there he says that the United States' approach to multilateralism has shifted and has become more directed. Sorry there. I forgot to cut out that part in French. from my notes and my timestamps there, kits and cubs. So I apologize for that. That is my bad. Just going to take a look here to make sure. Okay, the closed captioning did not capture it. So I'm not sure what to do here, how to play it and translate it for you without you hearing double sound. So please just let me know if you are hearing double sound, kits and cubs. Okay. All right. So did you hear, kits and cubs, any discourse in French over the last couple of seconds? I'll just go to the chat there and ask her for your input, because if that's the case, then I can keep on playing the sound and give you some simultaneous interpretation for what it is he's saying in French, and then come back to the video when it's in English. So just wait a couple of seconds for you, kits and cubs, to let me know. I'm going to guess, since I don't see anything coming up saying we hear something at the same time as you, that you don't. All right. So in that case, it says, we are not going through a transition, but a rupture. And in every rupture, there is a responsibility to build something new. We know that nostalgia is not a strategy, and we cannot rebuild the world of yesterday, but we need to build something better. Um, so yeah, that's basically what the Prime Minister's overall attitude is here. Continuing on in English, the Prime Minister says,
This year's G20 summit brought together nations representing 3/4 of the world's population, 2/3 of global GDP, and 3/4 of the world's trade. And that's without the United States formally attending. It's a reminder that the center of gravity in the global economy is shifting.
all right, now that's something very important that I want you to keep your eyes on, or keep in the back of your mind, kits and cubs, is the Prime Minister mentioning that particular set of facts here, that G20 meeting that just took place without the United States' presence brought together nations representing 3/4 of the world's population, 75% of the world's population, 66% of global GDP, and 75% of the world's trade. That's not counting the United States. If the United States had been at the table, those numbers would have been larger. So this is not insignificant. It's not insignificant whatsoever. So if the United States is creating a vacuum and Canada is stepping up to take some leadership there, this is a major forum. To what he has to say here, and again, I'm going to go back a little bit because I talk so that we can rejoin the flow. But he's literally stating here that there is a different approach going forward, considering what the United States is choosing for itself here, and that we basically need to get on board.
It's a reminder that the center of gravity in the global economy is shifting. The last century was defined by concentration of capital, production, and power. The next one will be defined by diffusion of technology, of energy, and influence, by the rise of the Global South and new roles for middle powers like Canada, to multilateral arrangements that work for all. Our task is to ensure that Canada doesn't only endure this shift, but that we prosper under it. And that demands a new economic strategy. It's It's why Canada is signing new deals with new partners, diversifying our trade and attracting billions of dollars of new investment into our country. Under South Africa's presidency, this G20 is focused on solidarity, equality, and sustainability, priorities that Canada strongly supports. And these values define how Canada is building now. We're building inclusively, in full partnership with First Nations, the Inuit, and the Métis. We are building in solidarity with workers, creating good union jobs. We're building sustainably, because reducing emissions is not just a moral duty, it's an economic imperative. And we're aligning our approach to our strengths in clean energy, critical minerals, and infrastructure. Lundi, juste avant notre départ pour cette visite aux Émirats arabes unis, notre premier budget fédéral a été adopté. Au cours de ce budget se trouve un plan ambitieux visant à libérer 1 000 milliards de dollars de nouveaux investissements au cours des 5 prochaines années.
So he's talking here about the budget having been released, and that the budget is indeed ambitious, seeking to bring in $1 trillion of investment over the next 5 years. Let's see what else he goes on to say here, Kids and Cubs. And he says, a portion of this plan consists in doubling our exports to markets other than the United States, which could generate $300 billion in new trade over the next decade. In order to feed this ambition, we have to diversify our commerce and conclude new accords with new partners and investors. We are building big, and we're building so that everyone can profit from it. All right, and now let's go back to what the Prime Minister is saying in English so that we can get back to the flow of his comments here. But he, as you can see, he's laying the groundwork, telling how everybody how in his world, the world is shifting here. From concentrated power to more diffuse power when it comes to information technology and critical minerals and stuff of the sort, as opposed to concentrating, so that there's a bigger need now to be looking outward than there was before.
At a time when too many countries are retreating into geopolitical blocs or the battlegrounds of protectionism, Canada believes that the G20 must remain a bridge. At this year's summit, we've deepened our partnerships. Well, in South Africa, we've announced the opening of FinDev Canada's new office in Cape Town. This office will finance sustainable development projects and connect Canadian firms to new opportunities across Africa. Canada and South Africa have also just agreed to launch discussions on a new foreign investment protection agreement, which will catalyze even greater private sector engagement in the infrastructure, clean energy, and minerals space in this country. We have advanced work on a critical minerals production alliance building on the G7 standard-based markets roadmap, and we've secured South Africa's agreement to continue those discussions toward greater cooperation on the sourcing, responsible sourcing of those minerals and investor protections. In the last 3 days, I've also held several bilateral meetings. Canada is re-engaging pragmatically with global giants India and China. Yesterday, Canada, India, and Australia formed a new trilateral partnership on technology and innovation, which will accelerate our cooperation on critical and emerging technologies. A partnership that will draw on our strengths and focus on clean energy, critical minerals, and artificial intelligence to unlock more opportunities for Canadian workers and businesses. Prime Minister Modi and I are meeting later today to discuss our broader trade relationship. Yesterday, Canada met the EU and Vietnam in its capacity as the incoming chair of the CPTPP trade agreement, and we began discussions on greater integration between the CPTPP and the EU. Linking those two of the world's largest trading blocs, representing over 1 billion people, will expand trade, catalyze investment, and increase partnerships across a range of areas from AI to energy in the Indo-Pacific, Europe, and of course, very much in Canada. Our senior officials will convene over the following months with a mission to deliver concrete results in this new bloc early next year.
All right, so a little talk about Canada trying to get closer to India. As we mentioned, we have to be careful with that. When it comes to, I believe it probably in the question and answer that followed, the Prime Minister was asked whether or not it would be a good idea to have increasing trade with India, and the Prime Minister made very clear that, when it comes to India, we have a long-standing trade relationship. We're one of the world's biggest investors in India. I think the 6th largest investor in India, and that with all things having to do with trade, we've never had much issues with India. We had certain issues with regard to security and sovereignty, but never with trade. That India has been a rather reliable trading partner. At least in our history with them to date, so that we have a little bit less to worry about there, that our issues are more on the sovereignty and security and extortion and that type of stuff, transnational repression issues, and that we will be working on those. And allegedly we have the agreement of the government of India to put those things front and center if we are going to be increasing our trade. We'll see how that pans out, and I will believe that when it lasts. But it seems that that's the pragmatic part of it. That we will have a trading relationship with India that will grow, and whatever other relationships we have with India will therefore be contingent on how well they respect us on the security and sovereignty issue. So again, they're probably not going to be buying military weaponry from India soon, as we are with Sweden, because, well, we're just not that close yet. But being practical, it is a market of over 1 billion people in the world's most populous country, and also a democratic country-ish at the moment. Modi is trying to change that a little bit, but also a Commonwealth partner. We do have a long history. We have a large diaspora within Canada. So there are lots of natural opportunities, and pragmatically, it would make sense to develop a better trading relationship with India. In that section, he mentioned that there was a new AI technology partnership with India and Australia. This is according to the CBC, Canadian Press with Dylan Robertson. Prime Minister Mark Carney has had Canada launch a partnership with India and Australia on emerging technologies while at the G20 summit in South Africa. The trilateral agreement aims to have the three democracies work together to diversify supply chains, use clean energy, and help with further uptake of artificial intelligence. The move comes as Canada resets its relationship with India after 2 years of strain related to the RCMP, saying New Delhi has played a role in the murder and extortion of Canadian citizens. In a joint statement released Saturday morning, the three countries announced their group would be called the Australia-Canada-India Technology and Innovation Partnership, ACITI. Quote, the initiative will draw on the natural strengths of the three countries and have an emphasis on green energy innovation and building resilient supply chains, including in critical minerals, the joint release said. The partnership will also examine the development and mass adoption of artificial intelligence to improve the lives of our citizens. According to the release, the three countries agreed that officials should convene in the first quarter of 2026 to take the initiative forward. Carney was in Johannesburg for the G20 summit, where most leaders endorsed a joint declaration despite a U.S. boycott. The statement includes language on climate change, women's rights, and Middle East that the administration of U.S. President Donald Trump had pushed back on at various points during this year. But since you guys did not show up to do the work at the meeting, you guys don't get a say on the statement. So the statement went ahead without you, and despite your objections. Oh, well. Too bad. So again, this is an important deal moving forward, important accomplishment along the way that will yield benefits for years to come if it is able to be maximized. All right, let's go back and see what the Prime Minister has to say.
In addition, Canada is maintaining our leadership in global health and science. On Friday, we pledged $1 billion to the Global Fund, which will protect millions of people from the world's deadliest infectious diseases. The Global Fund has already helped over 25 million people access HIV medicines, treated 7 million people for tuberculosis, and protected more than 160 million people from malaria. Our new government is working for Canada to move from reliance to resilience by building a broad and dense web of new partnerships and creating new economic opportunities that will make Canada stronger both at home and abroad.
All right. Now, on that issue about the donation to the Global Fund, $1 billion does sound impressive, but according to the Canadian press, there's a little bit more to know about that. To give this some text, Prime Minister Mark Carney has made Canada's first ever cut to funding for a major program for fighting infectious diseases in the world's poorest countries, a move that has been sharply criticized by Canada's development sector. The announcements of Canada's $1 billion contribution to the Global Fund, down more than 17% from its last contribution in 2022, came just before Carney's arrival in South Africa at the G20 summit. Quote, "It does not make sense," said Justin McCauley, Canadian spokesman for the One campaign, which advocates for global investment in programs to support Africa. Quote, "We have game-changing drugs available now that can essentially put an end to the AIDS crisis, but stepping back at such a scale right now is quitting a marathon in the last kilometer. The Global Fund helps fight diseases such as AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. Canada has supported the fund since its inception in 2002. The fund's programs distribute mosquito nets to protect populations from malaria and provide medication and treatments to people living with HIV and tuberculosis. The Global Fund replenishes its contributions every 3 years. Canada's $1.02 billion contribution for the 2026 to 2028 period is $190 million lower than its contribution for 2022 to 2025. That 2022 pledge of $1.21 billion represented a 30% increase in Canada's contribution at the time. Carney had his G20 representative Cindy Termushizen made the announcement on Friday in Johannesburg while the Prime Minister was flying to the summit. Quote, "This pledge reflects Canada's continued leadership in global health while aligning with broader domestic priorities and recalibrating contributions to a pre-pandemic scale," Global Affairs Canada wrote in a news release. Quote, "Canada is committing to do its part in finding global solutions to global problems. This means investing in strong partnerships like the Global Fund that are achieving a significant return on investment to drive meaningful progress." So basically, the Canadian government's spin on this is that it's not so much that we're cutting back the donation, we're putting the donation back to where they were at pre-pandemic levels, because during the pandemic, the fund needed a little more help, so we gave more help. And now that the pandemic is over, we're going back to regularly scheduled funding. It's a take on it, but it still does remove money from the fund, especially if you count inflation during that period and how much that takes away as well. Macaulay said the government's cuts don't follow the logic of investing in proven solutions, given that the Global Fund has said its programs have helped save 70 million lives. Quote, "The Global Fund is the single greatest, most effective investment that countries can make in global health," he said. "Canada has always answered the call and done our fair share. This cut breaks that legacy that showed Canadians care." Adam Houston, Doctors Without Borders head for Canadian advocacy, said he was deeply disappointed by the cut. Quote, "Canada has chosen not to lead, but to follow in the footsteps of other countries whose cuts to global health this year have already had deadly consequences," he wrote. "Such cuts will fuel the reversal of progress in the fight against HIV, TB, and malaria." Earlier this week, Doctors Without Borders warned that the Global Fund is in danger of not hitting its $18 billion target US to fund the next 3 years. In a statement endorsed by groups such as the HIV Legal Network and the Stephen Lewis Foundation, Results Canada called the cut, quote, "a move that undermines progress against 3 of the world's deadliest infectious diseases and weakens Canada's credibility as a reliable global partner." Results noted that the cut comes, quote, "at a time when global stability, Canadian prosperity, and lives quite literally hang in the balance." Germany and the United Kingdom also reduced their contributions, Germany by 17% and the UK by about 15%. Both countries will contribute the equivalent of about $1.6 billion over 3 years. The United States, typically the fund's largest donor, contributed $6 billion to the 3-year fund cycle in 2022. On Friday, it had announced a US $4.6 billion contribution. As for Friday afternoon, the fund has garnered $11.4 billion in total, and it's looking for 18. Yikes. The fund's 8th replenishment summit was held on the eve of the annual G20 summit in Johannesburg, which U.S. President Donald Trump is boycotting. The summit chair, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, has put a major focus on rising global inequality, from access to financing to medical services. All right. So while we are leading, it's a large donation. I mean, it's 1.02, and I think that article mentioned here the combination of 2 other nations. Wish I could find it at the top of my head here. Germany and the UK will be about 1.6 billion together. So yes, we are a global leader in the amount still, but yes, we've reduced our amount by 17%, which is very significant here. But it seems that, like I said, if Germany reduced its by 17% and the UK by 15%, it seems that a lot of people are reducing by similar amounts, sadly. And the United States has reduced by way more than that, I would say. So hopefully there'll be other nations that will kick in to help that fund, because that is it is that particular program is a global success, objectively. All right, let's go back to what the Prime Minister has had to say. Just want to make sure that I'm giving these contexts about these programs that he is mentioning, because if you just say, we're remaining our global leadership, contributing $1 billion, well, that sounds good, but then how does that compare to previous years? And then we realize, oh, there's a 17% cut. So doesn't look as good as one would think in this case. And again, Canadian government saying we're just readjusting contributions back to pre-pandemic levels, whereas people in the field going, this is a severe cut and lives hang in the balance. All right, let's continue on.
As we deepen our trade relationships with reliable partners, we are building massive trade and transportation infrastructure at home in Canada.
Okay, so a little dig there on the United States. Again, as we're increasing our trade with reliable partners. The Prime Minister continues on in French here. We're building big national projects that will transform the future of the country. New ports, new means, energy corridors, projects that will add value to critical minerals, and initiatives for clean energy that will increasingly connect our economy. We are diversifying our industries, and we are allowing them to export to new markets all over. As one of the rare countries in the world to possess clean nuclear technology, such as CANDU reactors, we are accelerating nuclear development and access to high-capacity reactors. In September, we announced a first series of major projects that will be evaluated in an accelerated manner by our major projects office, and last week we announced a second series. In total, these projects represent greater than $115 billion in new investments. All right. And then again, he switches back to English here. So just make sure we get that for you. And then goes back to saying talking more about what Canada is doing. Now, again, this is a speech, again, that I remember he's making in Johannesburg. So, again, while Canadian audiences are seeing this, you can see how this could be directed or tailored for the overall global business investment market, as we had been mentioned on a previous show.
To turbocharge construction, development, and the creation of high-paying careers. We're signing new deals and finding new investors to fuel our plans and Canada's economic ambition. Earlier this week, I was in the United Arab Emirates, where I met with the leading sovereign wealth funds and CEOs to attract new investment into Canada. We signed an investment protection agreement, and we launched negotiations on a new comprehensive economic partnership. At the conclusion of my visit, I welcomed the decision of the UAE to invest $70 billion in Canada. This powerful vote of confidence in our economy represents one of the largest foreign direct investments in Canada's history and will create high-paying careers across our country, from energy to agriculture and artificial intelligence. Overall, we've announced almost a dozen new economic and security partnerships across 4 continents in less than 6 months. On Monday, we signed a new partnership with Sweden to increase collaboration on trade, investment, and innovation. We've signed agreements with the European Union in trade and defense, with Germany in critical minerals, with Chile in technology. We finalized a new trade agreement and economic partnership with Indonesia. We launched negotiations, free trade negotiations with Thailand and the Philippines as we accelerated our work to finalize our free trade agreement with the ASEAN nations over the next year. That's 20% of global GDP. Lorsque les historiens se pencheront sur la décennie à venir.
So there you go. Prime Minister listing a whole lot of things that he has been working on over the last couple of months and that we've been talking about here on this show. In negotiating, finalizing free trade agreements with Indonesia and as well, I believe, with Ecuador was the case, starting free trade negotiations with the ASEAN group, as well as with Thailand, the Philippines, and Vietnam specifically. That a big defense agreement with Europe, critical minerals deals with other nations, and you can see all around the world, right? 4 different continents. Stuff with Chile, stuff with Germany, stuff with Australia, as we just mentioned. There was another deal that was announced as well somewhere in there with Finland and the United States for icebreakers. So, this is one of these instances where we were mentioning, that we are going to have to do some business with the United States, no matter what. This here, according to High North News, Malti Humpert. Officials from the US, Canada, and Finland renewed pledges to continue working together under the Icebreaker Collaboration Effort, ICE Pact. The initiative, originally implemented under the Biden administration, resulted in the first concrete results earlier this year when the US government announced its intention to purchase 4 icebreakers from 2 Finnish shipyards. Under the deal, Rama Marine Construction, RMC, and Helsinki Shipyard will each build 2 medium-sized Arctic security cutters, with construction then shifting to Bollinger Shipyards in Houma, Louisiana, and Davie Shipbuilding's new shipyard in Galveston, Texas, for 7 additional vessels. This week's ministerial meeting in Washington, D.C. aims to further cement the partnership to revitalize the U.S. maritime industrial base and reinvigorate the country's icebreaker fleet. So that is from more of the U.S. perspective. From the Canadian perspective, this according to the Canadian press, Canada, the United States, and Finland have stepped towards building new icebreakers together despite the breakdown in trade talks between Ottawa and the Trump administration. Canada's ambassador to the United States, Kirsten Hillman, joined Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and Finland's Minister of Economic Affairs, Sakari Puisto, to sign a joint statement of intent in Washington on Tuesday to strengthen industrial cooperation and bolster the country's icebreaker fleets. Quote, "There's no doubt that we face an increasingly dangerous world, and it is important in these times to build on the relationships with our key allies," Hillman said at the Department of Homeland Security headquarters. The move indicates that U.S. President Donald Trump still supports the icebreaker collaboration effort known as ICE Pact, which was signed under President Joe Biden. The future of the ICE Pact was not clear after Trump's election win, when the relationship between Canada and the United States was thrust into turmoil. Trump in January dismissed Canada's role in building the ships necessary for navigating ice-covered waters. The president claimed Canada, quote, wanted to join us in the buying of icebreakers, and said, we don't really want to have a partner in the buying of icebreakers. Oh, well, gee, I guess you changed your mind again, didn't you? The Department of Homeland Security said in an October news release that the Trump administration signed an agreement with Finland to purchase 4 Arctic security cutters for the U.S. Coast Guard. The ship's design comes from Canadian company Seaspan Shipyards. But the United States, we have nothing the United States needs, though. Just our icebreaker designs. But other than that, nothing they need, right? That same month, Trump called off trade negotiations with Ottawa, citing an Ontario-funded ad quoting former President Ronald Reagan criticizing tariffs. Despite that, Hillman has said she has remained in contact with her American counterparts on many other issues. Security and opportunities in the Arctic have long been priorities for Trump, Noem said on Tuesday. The Arctic is the world's last... Let's try that again. The Arctic is the world's last most wild frontier, and our adversaries are racing to claim its strategic position and rich natural resources. To thrive in the Arctic, Noem said, America needs icebreakers. She said that requires securing supply chains and reshoring manufacturing to the United States. Noem said the Ice Pact pools all 3 countries' experience and resources to ensure icebreakers can be built quickly and on budget. Noem pointed to Canada's Chantier Davy, which announced in June plans to invest $1 billion in Texas shipyards. Davy also has operations in Quebec and Finland. Ottawa said in a news release that by pooling expertise and resources, Canada, the US, and Finland are expanding their icebreaker fleets to better address Arctic challenges. Canada is also boosting its Arctic capabilities. It is building 2 new polar icebreakers for the Canadian Coast Guard. Hillman laid out other ways that Canada and the United States work together to safeguard the North American perimeter, citing boosted border funding and a generational investment in defense. To hit Canada with economy-wide tariffs, Trump declared an emergency at the Canada-U.S. border over the flow of deadly fentanyl. Those tariffs do not apply to goods compliant with the Canada-U.S.-Mexico Agreement on Trade. U.S. government data shows a tiny volume of fentanyl seized at America's northern border compared to the border with Mexico. When asked about Ottawa's increased security efforts at the border, Noem said Canada has made strides but did not say whether it would be enough to end Trump's tariffs. Quote, we've had some good progress and appreciate their focus on that while we build our national security partnerships, she said. I'm getting tired of hearing that line from the United States. Just, yeah, really tired of hearing that line from the United States. Let's say it's either good enough or it's not. Like, just not. Well, we've been making progress, but we don't know yet. That's just this wishy-washy, again, amorphous blob type comment that really gives us nothing one way or the other. And it doesn't result in lowering tariffs, so we will see. We will see. All right, back to what the Prime Minister is saying here in his remarks. Whoops. I guess he's moved to French. So let's go back a couple of seconds here, and I will give you a little bit of simultaneous interpretation. All right, so he says here, when historians will look back on the decades to come, they will see a hinge moment, the one in which the post-Cold War order has yielded way to a world in which the order is more contested, but also became more advantageous for Canada if we choose to seize the opportunity. They will recognize that Canada, a nation that was forged by builders, voyagers, and risk takers, has chosen to build again, to take risks again, to chart a new course. All right, and I believe that the Prime Minister will be switching back to English here.
At the start of my remarks, I recalled that the ties between Canada and South Africa are deep. For many Canadians, these bonds were exemplified by Nelson Mandela's 2 addresses to our Parliament. The first was in 1990, just months after his release from prison. The second came in 1998, when he was president, he thanked Canadians for their efforts for justice in South Africa. And amongst President Mandela's many powerful words, one reflection echoes with resonance today. He said, "We know that our destiny lies in our own hands, yet we also know that we cannot bring about our renaissance solely by our own efforts, since the problems we face are rooted in conditions beyond the power of any one nation to determine." His words spoke to a moment of rebirth in South Africa, and today they can guide how we lead the way forward from this moment of rupture. The world's changing. The global economy is being rewired. Canada isn't retreating. In the face of change, Canada's new government is making generational investments at home and building deeper partnerships abroad. Dans cette nouvelle ère, le leadership du Canada sera défini non seulement par la force de nos valeurs, mais aussi par la valeur de notre force. Thank you for your attention. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We're now going to begin with the questions. Première question.
All right, and then in French again, the Prime Minister, repeating a line, said, about Canada being known not only for the strength of values, but the value of its strength as well. So we're going to move to the question and answer period here. I'm not going to show them all to you because some of them are a little less related and some are going to other subjects. But the first few questions that he had were dealing specifically with some of the things that he is saying and some of the things that have evolved. And then we will get to the part where he made that "who cares" quip that the Conservatives have decided to run with. So the first answer to the first question here, I won't say it's like putting the United States in its place, but he is, you can tell in this answer that there's a clear step forward where Canada is showing some leadership when the United States creates a vacuum here.
Jeffrey, go ahead.
Prime Minister, do you support Cyril Ramaphosa's decision yesterday to release the official final declaration of this summit in the opening session,
Yes.
despite objections from Argentina and the United States, and despite the fact that the U.S. was calling for only a chair statement at the end?
Well, I was in the opening session, and yes, I very much supported it. Let me give the context. The G20, these meetings, the actual meetings, are very important. The discussions in the room, as much as the bilateral series of bilateral meetings, some of which I just described. But it's also a very broad process that takes an entire year with a series of ministerials, environment ministers, trade ministers, natural resource ministers, ministers on artificial intelligence, and beyond. And those processes lead to a series of conclusions. There's also outreach from labor, from business, and beyond that also feeds into those conclusions. And then led by our Sherpa, Cindy is here, I hope, who's done an outstanding job, also our G7 Sherpa, a series of negotiations which come up with this consensus document. That document's there. We support it. The others around the table supported it. No one objected when it was put to the table. Obviously, the United States is not here, so the United States isn't party to that consensus. But that is a consensus, and I'll finish here, which represents governments representing 3/4 of the world's population, 2/3 of the world's GDP. That consensus, that statement, has weight.
Just as a follow-up, do you think the U.S., Donald Trump's decision to completely boycott this summit is doing any damage to multilateralism as a concept?
Look, I think that the decision of when you include guests that were invited by the chair, series of countries, including, for example, Jamaica in our hemisphere, Finland for other reasons, countries that were invited beyond the core members of the G20 as well as international organization. We have 60, I believe, don't you can double check the number, 62 leaders around that table. And that's multilateralism. And the job, I look at it more from who shows up, who engages, who does the work, and who builds. And Canada shows up and Canada engages. I think collectively we've made a lot of progress. Now, I'm not going to oversell it, because there are big challenges to multilateralism. We all know that. And the nature of that is in flux. And in fact, that will be the topic of the formal session this morning, is where does the G20 go from here?
All right. So in those answers, you have a bit of a. The first one is, well, yes, the declaration, we signed it and there was no objection to it. Now, of course, the United States was not around the table. And there's an expression in French, les absents toujours tard. So the absent are always wrong. So, you know, the United States wasn't here. That was their choice not to be here, but we moved on without them. And without them here, we were all able to achieve this wonderful agreement on this thing. And yes, the United States and Argentina objected. Of course, you know, Argentina has just been donated about $40 billion from the United States. So it's I am not going to say that that $40 billion bought that vote, but maybe it had some very heavy influence. However, yes, we take note of their objectives from a distance, but we're moving forward anyway. And then that second answer about how it affected multilateralism, you know, it's like, oh, you know, there's still some challenges to multilateralism, but it can work on a lot of good will happen for it. And well, you know, I pay attention to those who show up. Ouch. This is very diplomatic language, and it is very business professional, but you can see clearly that the Prime Minister has some frustrations with the United States in the manner in which it is going about things. And the Prime Minister is, if he hasn't come up to a mic and said, listen, we have just lost patience with the United States, fuck them. And we're just going to do us, which is literally what he said, you know, previously, right? The United States has made a decision, you know, when they broke up the talks because of the ad, allegedly, the ad that Donald Trump was fined with 4 days previously before somebody got into his ear and said he should probably get mad about this, and then he chose to. But at that time, right, the kind of Canadian position was, okay, well, the United States, you know, Beulah, he's at it again, another temper tantrum, come and watch this one. Yeah, he's promising another 10% tariffs, as if, you know, that can do any more damage than whatever he's done now. At some point, you know, add an extra 10% to 50%, it has no additional real impact because 50% is damaging enough. You've already destroyed the industry with that. The extra 10 will do nothing. But hey, he's at it again. He's flapping his wings and moving a lot of air. And, you know, I guess we'll let him cry himself out. And when he's done, he can pick up the phone and call us. We'll be here. But until then, you know, we got stuff to do. If that didn't give you a hint, the Prime Minister had pretty much had enough of Donald Trump. Right? This additional answer is adding some layers to that, which kind of probably explains the who cares moment that is eventually coming. The Prime Minister, after these two answers, gets asked about our so-called Africa strategy, if we even have one, because even though the Prime Minister has mentioned he's been making deals with 4 continents, one of those continents that he probably hasn't been making deals with is Africa. And if he is making deals in Africa, is, you know, maybe with the South Africa alone, but there are 50 other countries on that continent, and it's a fast-growing continent and a fast-emerging continent. You'd think we'd have a bit more of a presence, but we are retreating on foreign aid and other stuff as well. So let's see what the Prime Minister has to say with regard to us being called out a little bit on not really having much of an Africa strategy, or so it seems.
Next
Thank
question, Dylan.
Dylan Robertson of the Canadian Press. I'd like to ask about our Africa strategy. Our envoy for the continent said that he struggles with not just the lack of funding for the strategy, but getting people to actually say the word Africa within global affairs. We've had the cut to Global Fund, to foreign aid. We had a budget that articulated Asia and Europe as our priority markets, despite the young population of this continent. You've just announced the FIPA for South Africa. We haven't really heard about other priority markets on the continent. You're not visiting any other country on this continent. I'm just wondering, what do you say to people who feel that we're deprioritizing the economic opportunities here in Africa?
I'd say a couple of things. One, we've been in government for a little more than 6 months. We have set some priorities in terms of deepening the partnerships that we immediately have. For example, the deep partnerships with Europe, with the UK, with Mexico. So taking those partnerships and moving them, working to move them to the next level. So when you look at where's the most immediate return for Canadians, you start there. In our judgment, that's what we've been doing. And look, there's more work to do, but we have roadmaps in all those cases, and we're working that out. Then secondly, the opportunities, yes, the opportunities in Asia, where we have an Asia-Pacific strategy, as you know, but really putting that to work and being engaged, which is what we've been doing. We're starting to see some immediate results, finishing the work on Indonesia, launching 2 major free trade agreements that I just referenced, and finishing work that's been going on a long time on ASEAN, but also re-engaging with China and India. Then, as a broader set of things, which I won't detail. Yes, Africa is part. Is it the first thing we worked on in terms of priorities? No. I mean, that is revealed because we have a responsibility to have that highest return. Canada remains engaged with Africa. We are. Let me make a point on aid. The Global Fund. The normal contribution of Canada in international vehicles, if I can put it that way, is around our GDP. It's about 2 to 3% is the normal contribution. We're well over 6% in the Global Fund. Our share of the Global Fund went up. So yes, we've had to take pragmatic, responsible decisions across the board in government, which also included returning our aid budget to the level pre-COVID. Within that, though, we're focused on where it has a maximum impact, very much including on this continent, where the social justice element there. I'll make one final point just to give you the overall context. Yes, deepening the partnership with South Africa, as I referenced, but as well, I had a conversation yesterday with the chair of the African Union, the president of Angola, because the African Free Trade Agreement has just been put in place, and there is a possibility that we could work something there. That's not an announcement. I don't want to overplay it, but that's an example of moving on the Africa strategy. En français, quel aspect?
So he's going to go to French there and repeating certain things here. But as you can see here, the Prime Minister again trying to justify the 17% cut to the contribution to the Global Fund by stating coming back to pre-pandemic levels and then comparing it to contributions from other nations. And despite our cut, because other nations cut more, like the United States, basically our share of the contribution, despite the cut, goes up. So again, relative to other nations, we've maybe cut less, or we've cut as much as other nations, except for the United States, which has cut more. And therefore, when you look at the overall money in the fund, Canada is contributing a larger share. But still, in real dollars overall, it's fewer dollars. And we've had inflation in the meantime since the last contribution period. So, I mean, this is legitimate spin. It's not lying, right? This is, when we talk about spin doctors back in the day and what they used to do, it's like, yeah, we are cutting the fund, but look at this side too. It's also true that, compared to everybody else, with their cuts as well, because everybody's cutting, as a contributor to the fund. We are now a bigger contributor to the fund than we were before. Yeah, but not because we added more money, because we cut less than anybody else. We cut less than some other people, or we cut less than the largest contributor, right? Somebody who contributes was contributing 6 times what we were contributing, or 7 times what we were contributing before, is now contributing only 5 times what we were contributing before. So yes, of course, proportionally, our donation looks bigger, but in real dollars, it's not. But that's spin. They are both true facts, and just one brings more light onto one side of the argument or one side of the reality, and the other shines more light on another side of the reality. That is good old-fashioned spin, but it is spin. Okay, we're not being lied to, but it's spin. It's a situation that is objectively less favorable for the fund and for the global fight against HIV and AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis. Is being spun as something that's not so bad or actually good, right? Or spun as we're not taking an unreasonable step back. We're going back to pre-COVID commitments, and we're actually a larger contributor now than we were then in terms of overall percentage. But again, on the ground, in real dollars, it is a cut. And then further with the Africa strategy, stating that it seems that there's probably, from what I understand, a free trade deal within the African continent being finalized, and that there might be an opportunity for Canada to pop in at that point to try and join that, and as well. Talking about maybe some deals with Angola, which is another nation which is relatively close to South Africa as well. But again, there's over 50 nations on the continent, right? So that one's sort of like this. And we're talking to Angola as well, something that you can throw in. But it's not really. None of this really seems to indicate that there is a concerted Africa strategy with which we are highly engaged or highly involved, and that's the way that we are planning to make that a key plank of where we're orienting ourselves in the future when it comes to diversifying our trade. All right. The next question here being asked as well is about what was called a feminist foreign policy. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau used to talk on the world scene, when a lot of people were accusing him of virtue signaling, talking about our feminist foreign policy. It's just from people who are looking at this seems to have been abandoned, or we're taking a step back from it. The Prime Minister is being asked about this one, and he's pretty blunt and direct. Oh, sorry, I forgot to fast forward over the French part because I got so involved in talking with you, kids and cubs. So just going to make sure here that we do go over that. He's basically just repeating in French some of the things he said in English there. All right, to the next question.
Ask about the feminist foreign policy. Yeah. Our Sherpa had written that we are going to try to advance gender equality through economic growth. That seems to be a bit of a reframing from the past government, which had more of a focus on sexual health, women and security, gender-based violence. You probably saw South Africa pushing forward GBV given the protests that we've had here. So I wanted to ask, do we still have a feminist foreign policy, and where do those values fit as we try to expand these economic ties with countries whose governments don't always prioritize the rights of women and LGBT people?
So you packed a lot into your follow-up. We have, for example, the work on gender-based violence, the work on female equality was one of the priorities of the South African presidency. I recognize the challenges that exist in this country, and still the more work that we need to do in Canada with respect to gender-based violence. In fact, some of our legislation, actual and prospective, is addressing those issues, which are real challenges. So yes, and this is an example very much of the value of the G20, which is to raise issues that affect all of our economies, all of our countries. It's not an economic issue first and foremost. It is an issue of justice. It affects Canada. It affects everyone around that table. Different countries put a different priority on it. But by discussing strategies and approaches, my experience is that, I think that's part of our policy as well, our experience is that helps make broader progress. So yes, we have that aspect to our foreign policy, but I wouldn't describe our foreign policy as feminist foreign policy. Those are different points, but related.
Next question, Ashley.
Yeah.
All right. So again, the Prime Minister being a little blunt here, stating that it's still important, and taking to note that it's important domestically, not only internationally, and that this is a matter of fundamental justice. It's not necessarily an economic issue, but making it very clear that while we do have a feminist element to our foreign policy, and that we care about that our foreign policy as a whole is not feminist. And here, again, Dylan Robertson of the Canadian Press was asking the question, pointing out that there seems to be a shift moving from, reproductive rights, reproductive health, reducing gender-based violence, all that kind of stuff, to other foci when it comes to feminism, when it comes to foreign policy here. Now we're getting into the part that the Conservatives are running with. So I'm going to play this aspect. I might stop it somewhere along the way here. But all of the questions right now have been with regard to foreign policy, and now we get to the question of someone, I believe it is Ashley Burke from the CBC, and there might be people here trying to bring the issue back to Trump, who is not there, and everybody, of course, being happy that he is not there. And we'll go through this moment here and see how it transpired in real time.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Ashley Burke, CBC News. Since the U.S. called off trade talks with Canada, has Mr. Trump returned your calls, texts, or accepted your apology over the Ontario ad?
He accepted the apology when I spoke to him, and we've had discussions. I've been busy. This is another point, though. I've been busy. We passed a budget with that's going to catalyze $1 trillion of investment. We have launched new trade agreements. We've secured new investment in the country of a size not seen arguably before. So we're busy. He's got other things to do, and we'll re-engage when it's appropriate.
All right. Now you saw the look on his face when he was asked that question, right? The look that came up, the sort of look that came up. I'm over exaggerating it, but somewhere in the question, has Donald Trump called yet, and all that kind of stuff. Like, have you talked yet? And was sort of a little bemused by the question, finding it maybe a little curious to be asked in this particular context. So again, right, United States is happening, but basically going, the United States is saying what he's saying, but we're busy. We're very, very, very busy. We're a busy country, very, very, very busy around the world. Negotiating deals, making new settlements, reorienting the economy, passing our own budget. Just going out doing us. We're just very, very busy. The United States has decided that it's doing that, and we'll just let them do that. But in the meantime, we're busy. Busy, 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 busy. The only thing the Prime Minister isn't doing is walking around the room very fast with a clipboard in his hand. Very busy, very just checking stuff out. Very, very, very busy. But of course, the answer is not going to be sufficient. So let's see once pressed.
What was the...
En français, juste, nous sommes...
Oh, so, but yeah, sorry. Basically, in French, for a couple of seconds there, the same answer. No new new news. So we're busy. We're very busy. That's the truth. We're busy with the budget. There's lots to do in Canada, and you know, with the investments in Canada and new partnerships, we can give ourselves a lot more than the Americans can take away from us. And I've said that many times. I'm sure you've heard this sentence or a variation of this sentence several times. But right now, this is the strategy that we are putting in place. So we are putting this strategy in place at the moment. So we are busy. Everything is not the United States all the time, all the time. Right now, here, there's 75% of the population, representatives from 75% of the population. Two-thirds of the global economy is right here, and this is the game of the future. So, um so, he is now going to be pressed, in English again by Ashley Burke, because he says a reaction here. And it comes pretty instant as the question is being asked.
When was the last time you spoke to the president? And as you diversify trade away from the U.S., what's your red line? Like in terms of dealing with other countries, I mean, what are the conditions where you won't do business with another country no matter how much money it has?
Well, I think let me answer the second part of that, which is there's levels of engagement with countries. Our partnership with the European Union, for example, is at a level prospectively that is unmatched with other jurisdictions because we have similar values in terms of privacy, for example. We have similar values in terms of sustainability. We have similar values in terms of workers' rights. We have similar values, to go to the previous question, in terms of gender equality, LGBTQ rights. And all of that reflects, so the level of economic cooperation, defense cooperation, security cooperation. We have similar views about territorial integrity in Ukraine as well. So our level of cooperation with the European Union, with the United Kingdom, is on a different level than our level of cooperation with other countries. So there's that aspect. Other countries in the emerging world where there's levels of cooperation which are more in commodity-based trade, goods and everyday goods and services, but don't extend to those broader partnerships. So all relationships are not equal; they're not of equal depth, and certainly it's not the case. This is an important point. When we engage with a country, Canada engages with a country, that we're endorsing everything that country does. The two do not follow. We calibrate our relationship, but it's not an endorsement of everything that happens in the country, nor vice versa from those countries to us.
So there, again, the Prime Minister making it clear, one of the points that I was telling you about when he's talking about relationships with different countries, different blocks, he calls it levels of engagement and compares, like, for example, our relationship with the EU and the UK, where we're looking at defense and other types of partnerships that we're not looking at with other countries that have, with which we have a more commodity-based sort of exchange or goods-based exchange, but not so much, we're not sharing so many values, that type of stuff. Working in the answer again about, feminism and foreign policy in there, stating that there are, with the EU and the UK, we have a lot more common on that front. So we can go deeper with integration or partnership on other levels and in other areas, whereas other nations that we can't. And that sort of ties in with his answer about Africa as well. We're trying to diversify our trade. And, if we're doing some triage or putting stuff in importance, well, I'm first dealing with the country, going to the countries where the money is and countries where we already have some legal architectural framework to our trade so that we can maximize that. And then looking at countries that have that are ready to go now and that have big trade opportunities with to try and sign new deals. And then, it might be Africa because we do not have a lot of activity yet. And, the African free trade deal, that legal architecture is probably going to be a precursor to what we're doing. But also in one of those previous answers, he mentioned once again increased negotiations and talks between the CPTPP bloc and the CETA bloc, right? The Canada-EU trade bloc and the Trans-Pacific Partnership bloc, and them getting together. So there's a lot of things and there's a lot of angles that we're working at a certain time, and not everything has the same priority or has the same level of deep engagement. So things get placed in their proper boxes and then get placed in the order list in terms of priorities. So he's making the point here, and this is a very crucial point that often gets lost in nuance. And you can see that a lot of that answer has to do with dealing with India and China in terms of like the red lines. What country, or the UAE, right? Which countries will you not do business with, no matter how much money there is there, and where are the red lines on that? So making clear here that there is some nuance. Not all trade relationships are equal, and it's not as much of a priority for us to deal with everybody equally. There are certain countries we want to be more involved with at the time and at certain times, and those are countries probably with whom we share greater points of connection. So he's answering the second part first, but there was a two-part to that question. We need to get back to that first part, and I'm sure that he's going to be reminded of it.
Next question.
Who cares? I mean, it's a detail. It's a detail. I spoke to him. I'll speak to him again when it matters. I mean, the sort of, comme j'ai dit, nous sommes très occupés. Nous sommes très, très occupés.
So right there, you saw that question. So he was pressed about it. Yeah, but what about the United States? The phone call. It's like, did Donald Trump call you? When are you answering? And then, because we're not getting readouts after every discussion between these two or every text exchange, right? So the journalists keep on asking, when was the last time? When was the last time? And he's like, well, like who cares? And he's going on in French here, again, repeating, you have to understand that we are very busy. We are very, very busy. He's saying, um, so basically, a- and he's amused with the question, like he's got a smile throughout the whole answer. So he might be a little frustrated, whatnot, like this, but he's more amused than anything else. If I'm looking at his disposition here, so he goes, "We're busy with the future of Canada. We are masters in our own domain, and with the new partnerships, there will be conversations." Yes, with the President of the United States and me, probably in over the next 2 weeks. But w oh, and then he just slips back into English here, so I will bring that to you. He had slipped into French. He mentions it too in the answer. He goes, "Whoops, I slipped into to French here," because he was anticipating the question. So I'm just trying to set it up here so that I can show it to you. Here we go. I've got the proper timestamp here. So he slipped into French. I wasn't expecting that there. It was just thrown in.
I'm always happy to. Sorry, I slipped into French because I anticipated the en français thing. I look forward to speaking to the president soon, but I don't have a burning issue to speak with the president about right now. When America wants to come back and have the discussions on the trade side, we will have those discussions. I'm going to answer a potential question here, and then I'll pass back, which is, for example, with respect to Ukraine and the 28-point plan. We are a core member of the Coalition of the Willing. You would have seen a demonstration of that yesterday with the meeting of European leaders, a core group of European leaders, the Prime Minister of Japan, ourselves, and which formed a common position. And that common position is communicated. Our national security advisors are meeting today in Geneva, including Canada's, and the common position communicated to do the additional work that's required on the peace plan there. Each of us do not need to call President Trump and communicate that position. We need to forge that position. That position's been communicated. The follow-up is being done by our national security advisors. I will be speaking with President Zelensky later today just to close the loop on some aspects of that. Okay.
So there you have it, kids and cubs, with an example that doesn't really have to do with that, giving an example how not everybody has to pick up the phone and individually call President Trump and say, we've decided on this. This is where we want to go. But as you can see, the whole flow of that is that he's asked about Donald Trump, when's the last time you talked, when's the last time you called, all that type of stuff. Slips into French to answer a question in French, then gets pressed on it, goes like, who cares? Like, when's the last time we talked to Donald Trump? Because we all know the situation, what he's like, just who cares? We're very busy organizing our own stuff, when there's an opportunity, like this, or, they'll come up, I don't really have a burning question. And then Pierre Poilievre has taken that and says, really, you don't have a burning question? You don't think that tariffs are burning? You don't think that, all this type of stuff? And it's like, no, it's like, that question is always there, but given that the president has made it clear that he's not willing to talk about that at the moment, there has been no additional development on that front that has jarred things that the prime minister feels that it's like, whoops, the universe just thrown us a curveball. I need to pick up the phone and get on the phone with Donald Trump. Nothing has changed materially from the moment Donald Trump decided to break off the talks last time and now. So what's the point at this moment, particularly when you have a lot on your agenda? Like I said, one of the things that we're trying to do is buying time, and Donald Trump not wanting to talk to us gives us time. Donald Trump not showing up at a G20 because he's boycotting it, because he has a problem with the president of South Africa, because he's pushing back on Trump's claim that there is mass discrimination against white farmers in South Africa. Nobody's crying about that. Nobody's sad about that. Nobody's angry that Donald Trump is not around the table. In fact, there's a huge sigh of relief. Oh, God, finally the adults can talk. Maybe we can get something done. Maybe the rest of those nations, all of us that are being adversely affected by Trump, we could finally get together in a forum where he's not here and strategize together about how it is that we are going to Trump-proof our own economies. Thank you for doing us a favor. We are not upset about this. I know that the media is upset about this. And the opposition's upset about this. He's not talking and nothing's happened. It's like, this is not a bad thing. This is not a bad thing. So, and in these questions, right, there's sort of an impression trying to be created here that maybe not trying to be created, but those questions asked those way try to create an impression that maybe the prime minister is writing Donald Trump left, right, and center all the time, and Trump is just not returning his calls, and this prime minister is not effective at getting Trump to return his calls, when it's been clearly established. Oh, well, the toddler decided to walk away from the table for the second time. The last time when he walked away, we said, oh, come back. Well, this time, it's like, well, okay, you want to walk away, walk away. We got shit to do, and when you're ready to come back, we'll be here. When you cry yourself out, give us a call. We'll get back to our regularly scheduled negotiations. Until that time, unless something devastating happens or shocking happens or something out of the left field completely happens, I have no burning issue to talk to you about, as you clearly have no burning issue to talk to me about, given that we haven't talked since you walked away from the table. Life goes on. I'm very busy. UAE, South Africa, Sweden, Vietnam, Thailand, ASEAN nations. Very, 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 very busy. There's nothing more to say, really. So I can understand the prime minister being frustrated at being asked the question. It's like, Trump's not there. Trump is not even a factor at the moment. And we're talking about, I'm signing trade deals with the UAE, and we had the royal family here from Sweden, and a full court press from, big seduction effort and charm offensive from Sweden over here. And, Melanie Joly is about to head off to Asia for more trips and more discussions and all that type of stuff. And our Minister Anand was recently talking to India again. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on, right? We got this deal for icebreakers with Finland and the United States. We got this other deal on critical minerals with Australia and India. There's a lot of stuff going on. Like, ask me about any of those things, and don't ask me about the guy that didn't even care enough to show up. And ask, when's the last time you talked to him? Is he returning your calls? It's like, no, nobody cares about this at this particular moment. Now, people do care overall, right? I mean, it's a big pressing issue, and it's the big issue, and we do want to see some progress about it. But in this particular instance, in this particular context of being at the G20, and I'm hammering out these deals and bringing back all this stuff home, you know, who cares? Now, since then, it has come out that the prime minister is maybe considering taking a trip to Washington D.C. next week. Don't know if he has any indication that if he went there, there could be a conversation between him and the president, or whether or not he would just be going to speak to business people and drumming up more business. But that has come up. So that's the major stuff on this part for the press conference. There are more questions about other things that we can deal with another time. But that's the major issues with regard to Canada and the United States and everything that's been going on with South Africa. And while he's been in South Africa and the UAE and the various trade deals that he's been signing, and how it is that he is moving to try to reorient us. A couple of other things I want to mention that are, some of them are related, some of them are a little different, but there will be a lot of activity on the Hill today and around the country with regards to some of this. Just looking here. This is according to iPolitics, amid a steady swirl of speculation over the contents of the as-yet released agreement that his government has reportedly reached with the province of Alberta, which, according to multiple media outlets, is on track to be revealed tomorrow in Calgary. Prime Minister Mark Carney is set to unveil new support for Canada's embattled steel sector later today at 3:15 p.m. According to an advance report from Canadian Press, the plan, which will be announced at an undisclosed location later today, would, quote, limit foreign steel imports from other countries where Canada does not have a free trade agreement. I believe we already started doing that in a previous round, so we'll be building on that initiative, which, quote, aims to allow Canadian steel producers to fill the gap in the domestic market, opening up an estimated $854 million in domestic demand, according to an unnamed official. The government also plans to work with CN Rail to cut freight rates by 60% when shipping steel interprovincially, and if CN can't oblige a lower rate, Ottawa will subsidize the difference, the wire service added. As per the Toronto Star, Carney is also expected to announce more aid for steel business and workers, according to a similarly unnamed official. The latest measures do not, however, include higher tariff rates on foreign steel imports, something that Catherine Cobden, head of the Canadian Steel Producers Association, has demanded on behalf of the industry, the paper notes. Carney is also planning to make an appearance at the weekly caucus huddle, where the rumored deal with Alberta, and more specifically reports that suggest it could clear the way for a new pipeline through northern British Columbia, is all but guaranteed to dominate what is likely to be a hardly charged closed-door discussion. Quote, the prospect of federal backing for an as-yet hypothetical new oil pipeline is already sparking objections from British Columbia, some First Nations and environmental groups, while prompting concerns inside Carney's own caucus, the Star reported yesterday. One Liberal source who spoke on condition they aren't named said MPs from BC are hopping mad over a lack of communication from Carney's office over what's going on with the talks. Carney's to-do list also includes a morning pre-meeting with newly installed Newfoundland and Labrador Premier Tony Wakeham, who told reporters earlier this week he intends to advocate for more defense spending in Newfoundland and Labrador, as well as push for the Bay du Nord project to be designated as a major project of national interest. And that will be taking place around 9 a.m. Eastern Time, so that's probably already underway. Back in the chamber, MPs are set to spend at least one more day debating the pros and cons of Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne's omnibus bill to roll out measures included in his inaugural budget speech, which is still working its way through a second reading. And here, just to show how the Conservatives are being cooperative, right? You know, all that time that they complained, where's the budget? Where's the budget? We need a budget. Why don't we have a budget yet? Well, now we have a budget. And according to iPolitics, MPs are mulling over a Conservative-initiated call to block the 364-page bill from proceeding to committee for further review. It's not fast enough. Why aren't there any shovels in the ground? When can the Prime Minister promise us there will be shovels in the ground? Oh, by the way, this budget thing that we asked for, yeah, we're going to try to block it to make sure that nobody can discuss it and review it. But where's the money? Why aren't you getting it out there? Why aren't things moving forward? Why can't you do it faster? Bunch of hypocrites. Jeez. Before circling back to the budget bill, however, regular chamber proceedings will be put on pause to allow the House to mark a milestone in the multi-decade tenure of Bloc Québécois MP Louis Plamondon, who has represented voters in the riding known as Bécancour-Nicolette Sorel-Alnobac since 1984, when he was elected under the Progressive Conservative banner, and now holds the record for the longest uninterrupted record of service in a Canadian parliamentary history. As per a special motion adopted with unanimous support earlier this week, representatives of all parties will have the opportunity to put their respective thoughts on the occasion on the official record after question period wraps up this afternoon at 3 p.m. And Bloc Québécois MPs will also pay tribute to their colleague at their weekly caucus huddle this morning. So there you go. And finally, Industry Minister Mélanie Joly will hold a mid-morning telebriefing on the first leg of her 5-day visit to Korea and Japan to advance strategic industrial partnerships, which began in Korea earlier this week, where, as per her office, she was scheduled to, quote, engage with senior government officials and leading industry representatives before traveling to Japan, and that will happen around 10:30 this morning. Again, lots of activity here going on. With regard to trade, and that doesn't seem to stop, even though it's not the prime minister necessarily himself doing it. Members of the team are out there trying to make those deals and make some headway with regard to that. All right. Kids and Cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. And when you include a little bit of yourself, why it is our content resonates with you, that also adds some value because that's advertising we cannot purchase. And we thank you so much for your help in getting the word out. Now, Kids and Cubs, if you would like us to help you, thanks to the Ray Girl, she has sponsored our pod page. And if you go there by either scanning this QR code that has appeared or by going to podpage.com/thetruenortheagerbeaver with a hyphen between each one of those words, well, when you go there and click subscribe, when we have something fresh off the audio cast bandwidth, it comes directly to you. And therefore, you can pop us in your ears and take us with you as you go and take on the day and remain informed. So thank you for subscribing, Kids and Cubs. If you would like to help us, we would certainly appreciate it if you took a trip on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page. That QR code that just appeared in the corner will bring you there, and there you can smash with our buttons, like, share, and subscribe. Sorry, my foot is itchy. That's why my face is looking a little weird here. There we go. If you can click on like, share, and subscribe, we would very much appreciate it. We love it when our numbers go up, and it helps us with the algorithm. So thank you for your help. And if you are able to help in other ways, say financially, especially as we're hitting the end of the month, the emergency hydration fund at the Beaver Lodge could use a little love if you like our content and would like to encourage us to do more of it, because we do incur some costs to bring this show to you, and we are hoping that you can help us with that. If you scan that QR code, it will bring you to our coffee page. That's coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word, and there you can make a contribution to the emergency hydration fund, because a moist beaver is a happy beaver. And we must do what we must in order to keep our favorite beaver moist and happy. So we thank you so much for your contributions, and they mean the world to us. If you are buying Canadian Kids and Cubs, then truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is how you would make your contribution via a bank-to-bank transfer, which makes it such that the oligarchy in the United States do not get a portion of your contribution. And in fact, that 100% of your contribution comes to us, which means your donation goes further. Thank you so much for your support. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube, we have the Super Chat feature and memberships, all of it very important to our growth and our development as a show and to our continued success. Everything you contribute really makes a big difference, and no donation is too small. So thank you very much. Now, for those of you who are not able to contribute financially, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is how you can contribute in word. For example, by giving us your thoughts on the show, good, bad, or ugly, or giving us some guest suggestions for who you would like to see on the show. This is your show too, and we like to help with that. So Kits and Cubs, please send us your feedback. And if you wish to reach us via our socials, True Eager at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge, and on the shitter, True North Eager Beaver, our Facebook page, our original home. And if you happen to be watching on YouTube, either live with the damn fam or at your own time, right down here in the comment section, leave a little something. We do read everything, even though we're not necessarily able to get back to everyone. And we thank you, because everything you contribute, either financially or in word, gets rolled back into the show to make it better. And we are very grateful for your support. Because democracy is something that you do, Kits and Cubs, remember we have a House of Commons petition E6821 to encourage our parliamentarians to pass a law that would make it such that Canadian journalism is by Canadians, for Canadians, and in the best interests of Canadians. And I'm going to include the link to that petition right here in the chat so that you can add your beautiful autograph to it and increase the numbers. We are right now at 6,871 signatures. And for 2 more days, and not even 2 more days, just over another 24 hours, because it says here it's 9:55 a.m. and this closes tomorrow at 9:58 a.m. So just to say that there are 24 more hours for you to sign our Commons petition E6679. And we had a guest, Mr. Fed Sanchez, on our show a few months ago to come and talk about that petition, which would encourage members of the House of Commons to pass a bill that would make it such that there would be consequences for MPs who knowingly spread disinformation, and also create a registry that Canadians can consult to see just how honest our MPs have been. That is House of Commons petition E6. Let's take a look, make sure I got the number again. E6679, and it has 43,896 signatures. So let's see if we can hit 44,000 before the time that signature window closes. But thank you for all of your support in participating in those 2 initiatives. And if you happen to be living on Prince Edward Island on December 8th, you will have a by-election for District 2, which is Georgetown Ponal, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I'm wondering where the information went. It seems to have disappeared. Oh, that is terrible. There it is. Got it right here. Yes, Georgetown Ponal, with advanced polls being open November 29th. So in 3 days, December 1st and December 5th, and voting open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Of course, as we keep on mentioning, the leader of the PEI Liberal Party, Robert Mitchell, is running in this by-election, trying to secure his seat in the legislature. So please plan your vote, because friends do not allow friends to do democracy alone. Kits and Cubs, they just do not. All right. Words of wisdom, Kits and Cubs. If you have someone in your life that you care about a lot, and you want some quality time, why not suggest a date night? And whether that's romantic love or platonic love or just good friendship, a hangout night. Spend some time, some quality FaceTime with someone that you love. Maybe someone you haven't seen in a couple of weeks, that you miss, and you care about. Or of course, if you have your love at home, your sweetie at home, and you haven't, it's just been the day to day for a little while. Take some time out and have a little moment of connection. Check in with each other. Show each other some love and some affection, some cuddles. It's good for the soul. All right, Kits and Cubs, that's all I got for you for now. Remember, it could be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And now, Kits and Cubs, may I please have you say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I hear you. I hear you loud and clear. And therefore, my darlings, I must oblige. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, kids and cubs, we have some news of Canadians who make us proud. And we want to bring that to you, kids and cubs, because they've accomplished some pretty wonderful things. We talked about figure skating a couple of days ago, and very, very important news for Canada is that the places for the Grand Prix have finally been attributed. And as expected, kids and cubs, at the senior level, we've qualified 2 teams. We've qualified the ice dancing team of Piper Gillies and Paul Poirier. And we have in pairs the team of Diana Stellato Dudek and Maxime Deschamps. The team of La Joie and Laga in ice dance finished 1 spot outside of the Grand Prix, but they are named the alternate in case of one of the 6 couples cannot make it. They will take their place. So that's 4 skaters, but there's also a junior Grand Prix competition, and there Canadians have done very well. In the pairs competition, we have 3 teams that have qualified for the Grand Prix final. So basically, 3 of the 6 best teams in junior pair skating in the world currently, right now, are represented by Canadians, which means the future in this particular discipline is pretty solid. So we have Eva Kemp and Jonathan Elizarov that are the Canadian junior champions, reigning junior champions, that have won gold medals and both of their assignments on the junior circuit. Then there's Jasmine Desrochers and Kieran Thrasher, who qualified as well. And then Julia Quattrucci and Etienne Lacasse, which is a new team that formed this season and is already receiving absolutely fantastic results. And then I believe in ice dance, Leila Veillon and Alexander Brandis also made the Grand Prix final in the Junior Grand Prix. So we will have 12 athletes participating in the Grand Prix final in both senior and junior competition. Very exciting. And again, with some of our single skaters having a little bit of success. There was, we mentioned about Madeline Skizas, who finished 5th overall, which was the best by Canadian women this season at the Finlandia event. And then Roman Sadovsky, and who finished 4th. And Gogalev, his first name, Stephen Gogalev, having won a bronze there. But there was also a ISU Challenger Series event when one was called the Warsaw Cup, and Sarah Maud Dupuis from Canada earned the gold medal there with a personal best skate of 185.66, which for her first international victory, which was punctuated by a clean triple axel in the free skate. Not a lot of women are landing triple axels. She's the first Canadian woman to ever land that jump, and she will be signaling to Madeline Skizas that she plans to compete with her to get that one-woman spot for Milano Cortina in 2026 for the Winter Olympics. In short track speed skating, there was the 3rd World Tour stop on the ISU short track circuit in Gdansk, Poland, and the short track speeding team picked up 7 medals there. Last year's Crystal Globe winner won both won gold in both the men's 1,500 and 500 meters. He won all 3 500-meter races this season and the last 2 1,500-meter races. This is Stephen Dubois that we're talking about, of course, and he added a bronze in the 500-meter race there. Sorry, we're talking about William Danjidou, who was the Crystal Globe winner, who won gold in the 1500, 500, and won all 500 meters, 500 meter races this season. Stephen Dubois added bronze in the 500 meters, and in the women's 1000 meter, Courtney Sarot claimed silver, while Florence Brunel finished fourth. On Saturday, Sarot and Dubois were both on the podium as Sarot won bronze in the women's 1,500 meters and Dubois finished third in the men's 1,000 meters. Sarot was also in the women's 500 meter final, finishing fourth. Dubois, Danjidou, Brunel, and Danae Blais added bronze in the mixed relay. Danjidou also comfortably leads the men's overall standings, heading in the fourth and final ISU short track World Tour stop next weekend in Dordrecht. The season has been shortened this year because of the Olympic competition coming up early next year. Sarot tops the women's rankings, and the end of the World Tour also marks the end of the Olympic qualification period. In long track speed skating, there was a World Cup in Calgary, and Canada picked up 4 medals. In possibly her final international competition on home ice, Ivanie Blondin won gold in the women's mass start for her 40th career World Cup medal in that event. Quote, "It's most likely my last World Cup here at home, so I'm a little bit emotional," said Blondin. "This result is what I wanted, especially after last week's weird finish to the mass start. My goal was to keep it together and not let any breakaways happen because my forte is obviously the final sprint. I found a hole in the last lap and went for it." Valérie Maltais had been in a podium position coming out of the last corner, but a slight loss of balance caused her to slip to 4th place. She did get on the podium with Blondin and Isabelle Weideman as the reigning Olympic champions took silver in the women's team pursuit. That was Maltais' second medal of the weekend. On Friday, she earned her second straight World Cup podium in the women's 3,000 meter, taking bronze in a personal best time of 3:56.45. Weideman staged a late race surge to finish 4th in 3:56.66. Ted Broman earned bronze in the men's 5,000 meter with the second fastest time of his career, and it was a really interesting competition because the competitors that finished first, second, and third each set a new track record on their own. So there was 3 new track records set at the event by the people who finished first, second, and third. Quote, "Last season was difficult for me. I didn't really have any good performances, so I changed my training a bit in the summer and worked really hard to get back into medal contention. Up until now this season, I didn't have a race that proved I was back, but I knew it from my training that I was. I just wanted so bad to prove it, and today I did just that, and it was very relieving," said Blumen. In the women's 1,000 meter, Beatrice Lamarche finished 6th, just a week after her first individual podium in Salt Lake City. So there you go, Kits and Cubs, a lot to cheer for from our speed skaters and figure skaters. And there's been more competition over the course of the last little while, but we'll bring you more of that in future segments of Canadians who have made us proud because we've gone on long enough today. All right, Kits and Cubs, that's it for me. Amour et bisous. And we will see you tomorrow. And with that, I am gone. Bye.